Here with the famous writer, Steve Kim. Steve, how you doing?
Good, how you doing?
I'm doing fine, thank you for asking. I just want to ask you a quick question about the Danny Garcia versus Mauricio Herrera fight that recently took place, which a lot claim it was a robbery. What did you think and how did you score it?
You know, I think there's a broad definition of the term robbery. I think the wrong guy got the decision. I thought Herrera clearly won that fight. I thought 8-4, 7-5. I wouldn't say it's the worst decision in the world, but I thought Herrera from the beginning, I thought he controlled things with the jab. And, you know, for all this talk of Garcia landing the harder punches, I don't think there was any real evidence of it outside of punch stats, which is a lot of guesswork. But I thought Herrera boxed very well, did a lot of things fundamentally correctly, a lot of little things that really I thought overall, in conjunction with each other, made for a lot of big points. And I thought he finished the fight stronger. I thought he was quicker. And Garcia, quite frankly, looked very flat physically. So I don't know if I'd call it a robbery, but I certainly think the wrong guy got the decision.
And why do you think these things happen in boxing? Why is it so common? They happen so often.
Well, this one here I think it had a lot to do with the geography of the fight. I think the home canvas advantage certainly belonged to Danny Garcia, being his supposed homecoming in Puerto Rico. And I think, you know, once you looked at the open scoring, the first 4 rounds where I thought no worse, it could have been no worse than 2 rounds apiece for Herrera, and if he's down 3-1 and 4-0 on 2 scorecards, I think that was a foreshadowing of what was to come. But I think here it was certainly Garcia not only being the house fighter, but figuratively making a homecoming.
And what do you think is next for either fight? What's next for Herrera, and then what's next for Garcia? Does Garcia stay at 40? Does he go to 47? Who does Herrera fight? I mean, he made a huge name for himself that night and gained a lot of fans.
I think Herrera earned another shot at the Showtime HBO level. I don't know what type of commitment he has. I believe he signed with Golden Boy before this fight. So I think certainly you'll see him in another significant fight. As for Danny Garcia, I think that's a very good question. He looked like a fighter at age 25 who's been fighting at right around 140 pounds basically since his days as a world-class amateur. I think he looked like a guy that probably needs to move up in weight. Now, whether they're willing to move up to 147 and then become someone who will be talked about for Mayweather in the near future, that hasn't been made very clear yet.
And who can he fight at 47 if he were to go up?
I think at 47, if you look at it, he's on the right side of the street as it relates to the Cold War with Showtime and Golden Boy. But most of your talent is at 47. I mean, Malignaggi's fighting Porter. Those are 2 guys right there. Also a guy by the name of Keith Thurman. Also with the fact that his association with Al Heyman allows him to have these opportunities.
I see. And speaking of Keith Thurman fight, speaking of the Malignaggi Porter, who are you choosing for both of those? Thurman fighting
Julio Diaz?
Julio Diaz,
well,
that's right.
I like Julio, he's an old soldier, but he is an old soldier. So I like Keith Thurman. I think there's a reason why they chose him. Even though, you know, Julio, to his credit, fought relatively well against some pretty good fighters recently. I think youth will be served here. Malignaggi Porter, I think, is a much more competitive fight. I think Porter has a very difficult, athletic, yet awkward style. But Paulie is the classic boxer. It's a tough fight. I think you can make an argument for both. Right now, I would lean towards the overall experience of Paulie Malignaggi.
All right, and last but not least would be for the fight that we're at the press for, which is the Marquez versus Alvarado. Who are you picking for this and why?
You know, I'm kind of in the minority. I think Alvarado is a great shot. I don't know if I'm full-blown picking him, but if Alvarado trains out in Southern California and not in Denver, which I believe is going to happen, and he has his legs and his ability to move, I think it's a very tough style for Marquez. I think it's going to be a great night regardless for Southern California boxing. I don't want to make a prediction yet. If Mike Alvarado has a good, productive camp, I actually think he could pull the upset.
Definitely. Well, thanks for your time, and thanks for an excellent interview.
All right.